Hi guys, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, hello, I'm Amber. I really appreciate you joining us. And if you're not new here, then welcome back to the Madhouse. We are now episode 9 into the fertility episode, so this seems to be flying by. We are now literally halfway through, which means I'm pretty sure there's only 8 weeks until Christmas. So that's exciting. But yeah, I don't know, I really appreciate all the support. These aren't always the easiest things for me to sit down and film, so the fact that people are actually watching these, I do really appreciate. Like, you don't understand how much it means, and just, yeah, how much I appreciate it. I never thought I'd be sat here filming myself talk about literally my uterus. But yeah, I really do appreciate it. So we have 9 weeks left after this. This week I kind of put it up to you to decide what I was going to talk about. If you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, then pause the video, head over and please do. I kind of put on my stories 4 different options for you to pick from, of what you wanted me to talk about this week, and the thing that came back literally by a mile was why I had my fallopian tubes removed. So I will give you a bit of a backstory in a minute, as if you are new here, you're not going to know everything, so for this to make sense, I'll kind of bring you up to speed. But, as I said on my stories, to have my tubes removed was my decision. There was reason behind it, there was method to my madness, but it was my decision, so that is what we're going to be talking about today. I hope you're all alright. I have been quite quiet on Instagram this week. I think it's been a really strange week. So Aunt Flo still hasn't arrived. So if you are new here, I am now near enough like day 50. I can't remember exactly what day it is, but I'm near enough a month late for my period. It is because of my polycystic ovaries and things like that, but this seems to be the latest I've been in quite a while now, and I'm getting really frustrated with it, to be honest. Nothing I am doing is working, so keep your eyes peeled for my upcoming blog post on amberinnateacup.com, because I am going to be busting those myths about inducing periods, because I promise you they don't work. So yeah, it's been really wild. My hormones have been all over the place and I've literally been having meltdowns left, right and centre. Like I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I near enough burst into tears and had literally some kind of freakish, monstrous breakdown every day, and my poor husband didn't half get the wrath of it. So yeah, it's been quite a difficult week, to be honest. I've not really been in the best frame of mind this week, but I do seem to be feeling a lot more positive again today. Yesterday I was in a really good mood, so I seem to be coming out the other side of it, but hormones are really a bitch, aren't they? Like, they're really not great. It was also payday this week, so that's a good thing. I'm finally not rock bottom poor. I have never been as poor as I have been this month. I don't even know what happened. I just overspent a little bit. Whoopsie. I'm not very good at this whole budgeting malarkey. So yeah, Aunt Flo's still not here. It's not really great, but we're plodding along. She'll be here when she's here. The more I stress about it, the more she's not going to come. But last night I sat at work and literally in a desperate attempt to kind of bring her on, I sat there at work with a turmeric hot shot and a little ginger hot shot. Didn't really read them when I picked them up. I really like turmeric tea and I really like ginger tea. These shots did not taste like the tea. The shot was full of cayenne pepper and it was the spiciest thing I've ever tried in my life. Everybody at work thought it was hilarious, the look on my face when I tried to do that. And then the ginger shot was just disgusting. I shot it like it was tequila and my throat was just burning. It was just gross. So yeah, blog post upcoming on busting these myths because they don't work. Like I said, today we are talking about why I had my fallopian tubes removed when I didn't have to. So we will get the ball rolling. So if you want to go make yourselves a cup of tea, do whatever you need to do, grab a blanket, whatever, make yourself comfy. You're not going to be here for 45 minutes, but you are going to be here a little while. We're going to talk. I'm going to be brutally honest with you about everything. So go grab yourself a cup of tea, get yourself comfy, come back and we will talk all things vagina. And if you haven't already, pause the video and subscribe down below. You will not regret it. Hello loved ones, welcome back. Hope you've all got your cups of tea. Today I have gone back to the typical English breakfast. I'm not having any of the fancy teas. I am well and truly getting my caffeine in before I start a late shift at work tonight, so the turmeric teas can wait tonight. I don't actually know how you say it. Do you say it turmeric or do you say it turmeric? I'm pretty sure it is turmeric, isn't it? I don't know. If you know, can you let me know? Thanks, because otherwise I've just like literally made myself look like an illiterate fool for the last 9 weeks. I did go to school, I promise. Today's mug is Central Perk. I am hoping you are all Friends fans, and if you're not Friends fans then I'm bitterly disappointed. We can still be friends, but you can't beat it. I don't trust people who say they don't like Friends. I really, really don't. It's just weird. Like, why? What's not funny? What is not funny about 6 people in New York that are just sarcastic and great and really cool and really funny, and I just wish I was them. I'll be there for you, like you're there for me too. Told you I was feeling positive today. Right, less of that, let's carry on. What is going on? I'm sure I'm losing my mind. If you were watching my Instagram stories, like, well, yesterday, I was going mad in my dressing room to Mamma Mia. I think I'm finally losing the plot. It's taken 25 years, but I think I've finally done it. So, anyway, yeah, what I was saying was, I hope you're all comfy, and yeah, got your cups of tea. I've completely lost my train of thought now. What are we talking about? My fallopian tubes, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so, for those of you who are new here, I'll give you a bit of a backstory. For those of you that aren't, I'll just kind of freshen your memories, so that when I start talking about my fallopian tubes, you're not like a fish out of water and have no idea what's going on. So, we started trying to conceive nearly 5 years ago now. It'll be 5 years in January. And it just wasn't happening for us. So I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries after about 18 months. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, sorry, I was diagnosed with, but they didn't think that was enough for me to not get pregnant, so we were just kind of told to carry on our way and take it from there. Anyway, we didn't actually get referred to the fertility clinic until mid-2018, and in September last year I had a laparoscopy. And what they found during that laparoscopy was that I had 2 fully blocked fallopian tubes. The reason I had the laparoscopy was because they thought I had endometriosis, because an awful lot of my symptoms seemed to match. Things like the literal chronic fatigue, the pain I get is unreal. I literally can't describe to you the pain that I'm in, not just when I'm on my period, but when I'm ovulating, and sometimes just at random points throughout the month. But yeah, I will do an episode on endometriosis, but I wasn't diagnosed with it. So my issue was that I had 2 blocked tubes. It wasn't endometriosis that was causing that, and they don't really know why my tubes were blocked. I found that quite a bitter pill to swallow, because not only was I told that I couldn't have children, but they didn't know why. So, I mean, they did know why. It was because my tubes were blocked, but they didn't know why they were blocked. And I'm a really small percentage of people as to where that is actually an issue. So usually they can diagnose what the issue is, but they have no idea with me. And I found that really hard to digest, because, like I say, I do get an awful lot of pain every month, and I'm not talking pain where I can take an ibuprofen or take some paracetamol and I'm okay. I mean, I will take naproxen or I will take cocodamol and it won't even touch the sides. And the pain seems to transfer, and it's not just in my stomach, but it's all over my body, and I literally can't stand up. I've been sick because of it before. I've near enough passed out from it before. I've been taken to A&E because they thought I was having an ectopic pregnancy. Like, that is how bad the pain is for me. And so yeah, because they didn't know why, they didn't know why I was getting such bad periods and why the pain was so bad. Because it would also be things like really irregular periods, and sometimes when we have sex it really hurts. And it's just like, there were so many things that were unanswered and that they couldn't give me answers for. But all they knew was that I couldn't get pregnant and IVF was literally my only option. So after that, they sent me for a HSG. Now, I don't know what HSG stands for. I could Google it, but I'm not going to. I'll just link it down below. It was a dye test, but they obviously do that while you're awake, and it's just an internal dye test where effectively they pump dye into your uterus or into your womb or whatever and see whether or not it flushes through. And so they did that basically. So they did it backwards really. I think most people have the HSG before they have their laparoscopy, but in my case I didn't. But they'd sent me for this HSG just to really see if there was any movement, and he also tried to unblock them. And I don't know, I didn't realise it'd be as invasive as it was. I don't really know what I expected, but Marco was on a stag do when I went. So I went completely on my own. And they told me that the pain was going to be like a mild period pain. And yeah, for someone who has really bad period pains, like, I don't know, if that's a mild period pain to most people, then I so envy you. Because it really didn't hurt me all that much at all. It was uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. It's never nice having your legs open and a man in a strange multicoloured apron shoving liquid up you. But it was what it was. And yeah, he tried, he obviously did the dye test and there was no movement whatsoever. And then he tried to put some pressure on them to see if there was any movement to try and unblock them. And it just didn't work. Like, that was really painful and I really struggled with that. But he did it, and then he said, right, I'm going to try it again and put a bit more pressure on, and he did, and he kept increasing the pressure, and then he said, I have to stop. If I put any more pressure on, I'm potentially going to rupture your tubes. So he stopped, but there was no movement whatsoever, not even the tiniest little bit. So that was that. It was, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's IVF or nothing. And I don't know, I found that really hard to swallow. I think I'd gone to this appointment kind of hoping that I was going to leave that and at least one of my tubes would have a bit of a gap in it and I could potentially get pregnant on my own. But obviously that didn't happen. So I came home, and that night I'd had the girls round and I'd got quite upset about it all, and I wasn't coping at all with knowing that I was infertile and not knowing why. I remember asking my nurse literally about 50,000 times whether or not it was anything that I did that could have caused this, and she was adamant it was no, but I couldn't help but blame myself. Before my laparoscopy, I had stopped smoking maybe 5 or 6 months beforehand. And I'd always been quite a heavy smoker, especially while I was at university. I have quite an addictive personality, so once I started, that was that. But I'd quit, and I was asking her whether or not that could have been why, whether or not it was because I used to smoke. And she said no, and bless her, she was really, really lovely. Her name was Wendy. And she just gave me so much moral support, but I just wasn't coping with it. And I resented having these things in my body that nobody knew why they were blocked. Nobody knew if it was the reason it was causing me so much pain, because they couldn't put their finger on anything else. Like, there was no other diagnosis that would cause the pain during sex and things like that. And for my periods to be so painful. The PCOS was part of it, but they didn't think that that was necessarily the reason I was in so much pain, because it isn't severe enough. Like, I'm kind of only just borderline with the PCOS. I'm only just on the spectrum, if you like. So they didn't really think that that was enough reason for me to be in such agonising pain. So they just didn't know. So as much as I had an answer, I had so many questions that were left unanswered. And I just wasn't coping at all. I think I was blaming myself. I wanted somebody to blame. I was really angry. It was impacting my marriage like I can't even tell you. It changed who I was as a person, and I had gone from being this... I don't even know how to describe myself. Like, I think I'm quite an average Joe, but I am quite happy-go-lucky. Like, unless you get me on a really bad day, 9 times out of 10 I am in a good mood, and 9 times out of 10 I am, I think, quite bubbly and quite in your face and quite... I'm just quite blah, all the time. I love to talk, and I just have a lot of energy like that. But after this, I had kind of done a complete 180, and I had taken 500 steps back, and I had turned into this angry, passive-aggressive, really emotional, horrible, depressed person to be around. And I was just, yeah, I just wasn't very nice, and my mental health dived, like I can't tell you. And my poor husband had to put up with all of that. And I just wasn't coping with it, and it was like that for quite some time. And on our final appointment with Wendy, she obviously told us that there was nothing more that they could do for us. IVF had been taken off the NHS in our area, and therefore Clomid wouldn't work for me, nothing else would work, because ultimately these tubes were blocked. So that was it, we were taken off their list, and it was, you know, a bit of a free-for-all now. Now you go and you fend for yourselves and you decide what you're going to do. The option of having my tubes removed came up. However, they weren't going to tell me that I had to have that done. And the reason they weren't going to tell me that I had to have it done was because there weren't, sorry. The reason they weren't going to tell me that I needed to have it done was because there weren't any gaps, there wasn't any fluid in it, anything like that was toxic, anything. I wasn't at risk of ectopic pregnancy because there weren't any gaps. The chances of an ectopic pregnancy were really, really, really slim. So it was literally impossible for an egg to get down those tubes. However, she did say it was up to me, and it was my decision to make. They weren't going to recommend that I did either or, because in their opinion it wasn't going to make any difference, but obviously because they don't know what was causing me the pain, they don't know whether or not that had anything to do with it. So it was up to me. She wasn't going to advise me against it, but she wasn't going to advise me for it either. She gave me some leaflets, and that was it, off I went, and it was my decision. If I wanted that doing, I just needed to give her a ring, and the referral would be made. So that's what I did. I went home, I did an awful lot of research, because having your tubes removed, so the operation is called a bilateral salpingectomy. That is a really big word. Bilateral salpingectomy. It is a big operation. Like, it's not just getting your tubes tied, like I'm literally having part of my uterus ultimately removed. One question I do get asked an awful lot is about whether or not I still ovulate, why I still have periods if they're gone. The answer to that question is you have a bilateral salpingectomy where you have both tubes removed, and then you have another one with another weird funny word in it, which is where they also remove your ovaries, and that triggers you into early menopause. I didn't have my ovaries removed. I can still carry a child. IVF completely bypasses the fallopian tubes, and so I decided to keep my ovaries, so then I was still ovulating, I was still producing my own eggs, and I could still carry my own child through IVF, but the tubes I decided to have removed. Like I say, it is a big operation. It wasn't a little operation. It wasn't like my laparoscopy where I'd be off work for a week and then go back in. I was off work. I was signed off for 7 weeks, and I went back on the 8th as I had some days off after that. It was painful, and it was really quite a testing time. I'll go into it a little bit more in a moment. But I decided to have that done more for psychological reasons. I had spent so long beating myself up over this, and even after I'd been given my diagnosis and been told that I couldn't have children, there was still, I'm not even going to say a little part of me, there was a big part of me that every month would hope that there was some kind of miracle, and that I would be that miracle, and that I would fall pregnant. And every month I was still going through all the motions of hoping that my period was going to be late, which it always was, and every time it was late I would be going over in my head all the different things of did we have sex when I was ovulating, could I be pregnant, doing the tests, and all I was doing was tormenting myself. And I still had that maybe in the back of my head, and no matter what I did, I wasn't coping with the fact that it was never going to happen. So for me, the best thing was to go ahead and have this operation, have my tubes removed, so that mite was taken out of my head and I could just deal with the fact that I could not have children by myself, and there was no ifs or buts or maybes in my head because they were ruining me. So that's what I did. Marco, my husband, wasn't overly keen on the idea at first, neither was my mum, and ultimately they just kind of said, you just need to do what you think is best for you, but I don't necessarily think it's the best thing. It didn't really take that much thinking about for me. I did my research into it, but to be honest, I was doing my research into it pretty much as soon as I was diagnosed. I knew I didn't want them. But I did all this research and I looked into it and I decided that it was the best thing for me. I was very scared building up to it. Like I say, it's not a small operation, so it wasn't something that I was sat there thinking, yay, I can't wait. Are you ever when it comes to an operation? I was very scared, and I was scared of any potential complications. I was scared of the recovery and the finality of everything. I was finding really hard to deal with, because like I say, those ifs and buts and maybes were still in my head, and there was part of me that thought, well, what if I get rid of them and then in 10 years time they come up with some kind of new technology that can unblock your tubes and you can have children naturally, or there was some kind of fallopian tube transplant and things like that, and all these irrational thinking and thoughts were going through my head. And there maybe is a possibility that at some point there will be something that they can do to help people like me and unblock the tubes, but in my fertile lifetime it's not going to be. I highly doubt that before I'm 35 that is something that they're going to be able to do, and as I said, the impact it was having on my mental health was abysmal, and I didn't want to live with that anymore. So I made the decision that the best thing for me was to have those tubes removed. I don't necessarily recommend it for everyone who is in my position. It is a very personal choice, and like I say, it is a very difficult thing to deal with. Some people will be told they have to have them removed. Obviously, when you have ectopic pregnancies, a lot of the time they will remove one or both of your tubes. For me, it was just a way of dealing and a way of coping, and I honestly think it did the job. So that was why I had the operation. So now I'm going to talk to you about the actual operation itself, and how that happened, the actual procedure, and then the aftermath. So yeah, it's all, I don't know, to me that operation was a massive turning point, and I don't regret having it at all. Like, I've effectively sterilised myself, but it was the best thing for me. When it came to having the actual operation itself, I had the operation on the 5th of March 2019, and I couldn't, from what I can remember, I couldn't eat after, I think it was about 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't allowed to eat. My operation was at 12 o'clock. And I wasn't allowed to eat, and I wasn't allowed to drink anything, and so I remember getting there and being so hungry, and I was sat in this little room and just waiting for my name to be called, and the anaesthetist came, and they obviously went through the pre-op questionnaire with me, and then the consultant came in, and she came to talk to me, and she was talking to me about why I was having it done, and reminded me that, you know, what you're having done is irreversible. We can't go back on this, you know, like when you have your tubes tied, I'm pretty sure they can untie them. It's not always successful, but they can. Whereas with this, obviously, it's completely irreversible, and she just wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, and that I was basically capable of making that decision myself. And, you know, she was satisfied. She understood my reasoning for doing it. And so that was that. And I remember going in, and I'm going to sound really sadistic and really weird here, but I love going under general anaesthetic. I was so scared of it the first time, but I just think it's brilliant. But this time, so the first time, it literally took a couple of minutes for them to get me down, if that. They put it in my vein and that was it, off I went. Told me to count down from 10 and see you later, there I went. And I think I was sat there telling them that I'd married an Italian just for the pizza and all sorts of rubbish. But the second time he couldn't get the, is it a catheter? They couldn't get it in. I don't know if you can, I might just, no, you can't see. But I have the tiniest of little scars there, where they were trying to get it in. But I was so dehydrated, so up until recently I would never drink water. It was maybe one of my biggest flaws that I would never ever ever drink water, so I was already really dehydrated. I just lived off coffee, and so the fact that I also then hadn't drank anything that morning, they couldn't find my vein. It took them 45 minutes to get me down. In the end, I had somebody come and wrap that tight thing around my arm. Another one was holding my arm up. Another one had a glove full of hot water or warm water that he was smacking on my hand, and the other one injected it. So that wasn't really ideal. That took quite some time. And then when I came out, I woke up, I think I came round at about 2:30. And I was in agony, like I really was in so much pain, and I wasn't in that much pain the first time when I just had the plain laparoscopy. And I just think, I woke up and straight away I was like just screaming out in pain effectively. So she gave me some morphine, and then that was out. I was high as a kite again. But yeah, I just, this time I was in so much pain, like I couldn't sit up properly by myself. I was constantly laying down, but then even laying down hurts. As anybody who's had any kind of keyhole surgery in the stomach or in that region will know, they pump you full of gas, and that gas travels up to your lungs and your shoulders. So I was in agony effectively from here down, and it wasn't great. I remember going to the toilet, and they don't let you go home until you can wee. And I remember sitting there and I couldn't go, and I was like, I'm going home. There is no way I am staying here overnight. I am going home. So I sat there on the toilet and I was like forcing it, and it just wasn't happening. And this woman was stood outside the toilet and she was like, are you all right in there? And I was like, yep. And I was thinking, I'm just gonna have to tell her that I have when I haven't, like nobody checks. But anyway, literally as she said that, I pushed with everything I had and it bloody hurt, but a little trickle came out, and I was like, thank God I can go home. So yeah, Marco picked me up. They told me to eat nothing stodgy, but typical, I ignored and ordered a Domino's, and it was the best pizza ever. But yeah, it was very painful. I was very out of it, and I literally spent the next 7 weeks sat on my sofa watching Gossip Girl, and it was great. I loved those 6 weeks. I cut out my coffee addiction, I switched everything, and my lifestyle just seemed to be, I just felt so stress-free, and for the first time in 6-7 months I just felt relaxed, and I felt like that part of my life was over, and I felt that those 6 or 7 months of just feeling awful and feeling like I didn't want to be alive, and just all those negative feelings that were just constantly dragging me down. Like I can't explain it. I literally just felt like, imagine you have like a pair of trousers on or something with really deep pockets, and those deep pockets were filled to the top with brick. That's how weighed down I felt. And it was just like, I just couldn't bring myself back up again. And after I'd had that operation, I just felt normal. It's the only way I can describe it, but I felt like a huge weight had been lifted, and I felt like, right, that's that chapter, that's closed now. My journey, if you like, was only just starting, when you think that, you know, we still had to pick a clinic. We didn't know whether or not the NHS was reinstating the IVF, and we couldn't get the ball rolling with anything, but that chapter was done. Those fallopian tubes were gone, and whether it solved my pain or it didn't, which it didn't, it did solve it up here. And I think I still have days where I'm really upset and I am howling and I am really letting everything out, and I just feel sad and angry, but those days now are few and far between, and they're not every day, and I don't dread getting out of bed every day, and I don't feel like I don't have a reason to live. Like, if anything, I feel like now I have more of a purpose than I've ever had. And And like I say, that this operation for me was just the biggest turning point that I don't think I'll ever regret it. I really don't. I think, like, don't get me wrong, if next week they decided that there was this magic way that they could unblock them and all the rest of it and everything was going to be hunky-dory, then of course I'd be gutted. But this is the path that I'm on, and everything happens for a reason. But I think it was the U-turn for me, and it was where I went from being proper negative Nelly to a bit of a positive Polly. And I had those few weeks off work to really get my head around everything, so that when I went back, I just felt better and I didn't feel like I did before. And from then on in, I think those 6-7 weeks were just all about me. It was all about building myself back up again, looking after myself, recovering. And I had so much time to sit there and think about everything and deal with everything that it was just the right decision for me. But I will always be grateful for that. And I think it's not for everyone, and it's not something that you should just do on a whim. And I'm not at all recommending it to anyone. As the finality of it is a big shock, and I think afterwards when you realise that that is it and there are no ifs or ifs or mights or maybes, there's none of that anymore. Like, that is it. You are infertile. It is impossible for you to fall pregnant naturally after this. But for me, because it got rid of those ifs and I did it again. Because I got rid of those ifs and mights and maybes, it just provided more clarity for me. And although there were no ifs or mights or buts and whatever I said, because I couldn't get pregnant, because they were still there in my head, there was. So it just helped. And I think I will always remember this operation as a turning point for me. It was the halfway mark. It was exactly 6 months from the day I had my laparoscopy. And so that was it. It was literally a halfway point of the year, that by the year point I had kind of turned, dipped, and then come back up again. And I started taking a new path. But if anything, I feel like I'm in a better place now than I was even before my diagnosis. Like, I feel like I am back, but even better. And so that was a really good thing for me, and something that I was really happy about, and something that I needed. So yeah, now I know it was the right thing for me, and I think you've got to trust your gut feeling. You know what's best for you. You've got to be your own advocate when it comes to this, and you have got to be your biggest supporter. Nobody else is going to advocate for you like you. You know your body better than anybody else, and so that's what you've got to do, and that's what I did, and I am so glad I did it. I can't tell you. At the end of the day, this was the best decision for me. Removing my tubes, I think, was a huge decision, but one that I feel was the right thing for me, and one thing that I really do not regret. So it was a question that I had an awful lot of. People didn't really understand the implications of it. People didn't really understand why I was still having periods, or how I could even have IVF if I haven't got the tubes. But like I say, it completely bypasses it. So IVF is our only option, but it was anyway. So my reason for doing it was all mental. It was all to do with my mental well-being, my emotional well-being, as opposed to my physical. There was a chance it might help my physical. There are some studies to suggest that without the fallopian tubes and the removal of that you are something between 40 and 70% less likely to get any kind of ovarian cancer. Like I say, the research on that is really minimal, but it was something that I took into consideration. I don't have anything like that as far as I'm concerned running in my family, so I shouldn't really be at risk of it anyway. But it was just another thing that made me think, okay, there's a benefit to this as well. And ultimately, it was just the right decision for me. It isn't for everyone. Surgery never is. It wasn't a light-hearted decision. It was something that you had to think an awful lot about. And I'm not sitting here saying that you should go get your tubes removed. That would be so irresponsible of me. As I said, it's something that you can't ever go back on. Like, it is life-changing ultimately. And it's not something that I'm here promoting to you. It is a question I get asked an awful lot, why I don't have any tubes if I didn't have an ectopic pregnancy or anything like that. Like, it was just my decision, and this is why I made that decision. So that's all there is to it. So that really draws us to an end of this video. I hope I have answered your question. If you do have any more questions about it, then please drop me one down below. Please make sure that you do subscribe to my channel. Like I say, I really, really appreciate all the love that I get on this. I really appreciate you all sitting here and watching it. But yeah, please do make sure that you like it, like the video, that you comment, that you subscribe, share it, do what you want with it. But please make sure that you subscribe. We now have 9 episodes left, so we are halfway through. We are now 8 weeks away from Christmas, which is really, really exciting. I did put a few polls out this week about different non-fertility related videos that you'd like to see, so I do have a few days off, so they are all going to be getting filmed this week. But I will see you next Saturday again for another talking about fertility episode. Anything to do with fertility, anything you want me to cover, please do let me know. I have got quite a few lined up, but I just want to make sure that I'm covering what you want to know rather than what I think you want to know. So do let me know. Thank you so much, and I will see you during the week on my Instagram. Make sure that you do head over there and give me a follow. I'm always on stories, and yeah, so thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. I really, really appreciate it. See you then. Bye.